Hello everyone and welcome to one of the better patches GGG has released for early access in PoE 2. It is 010E patch and it is generally improving the game where we do not have any more resistance penalties in tier 6 and 11 maps and onwards. We are getting monster nerfs, on-death effect nerfs, Sekhema rebalance and less honor wasted. There was a bug there. General balance of player power and increase in player power as well. Respec costs are lower and a plethora of lovely things. So as always, we are going to go through the patch recap. So we first have fast travel checkpoints within an area. Amazing for questing. You can now click on the checkpoint, teleport to another one, so you don't have to waste your time running through the exorbitant and huge maps in PoE 2 campaign. Passive point respecking is getting up to 50% price cut, especially on higher levels, which is amazing to say the least. So now it's going to be way easier to respec your character. I would still love a few of those full passive tree respec points, but it is what it is. We love what we get. Now we have a shortcut to open skill advanced information by right clicking on the skill in the skill bar, which is great, and we can compare equipped flasks with gamepad. That's for console. Now we have chance shards for currency exchange and button to travel to guild hideout, which is of course a great thing. For endgame and monster balance, we do not have the additional 10% lower resistances when elemental resistances when you get to tier 6 and tier 11. So if you weren't capped before, like me, I was at 75% and now 65, now we're not going to have the penalty. I don't even have any clue why they introduced the penalty even more, but it is what it is. So easier res cap. Get that chaos res, by the way. Crit strikes for monsters deal 40% less bonus damage, which is always a good thing, and chaos damage now scales less aggressively over endgame. It was by the tier 10 waystones that you would need more chaos res. Now you will probably need it in like 12, 13, 14, which is awesome as a change. So it gives you a little bit more time to catch up with the chaos res. The ground laser and lightning abilities used by rune knights in expeditions, substantially less damage, awesome. Waystone that adds burning ground no longer increases in coverage on higher tier waystones, perfect. Siphon's flask charges was bugged, and it drains 10 times less flask charges. It was draining flask charges in like 2 seconds or 3 seconds full flask, which was insane, so this was unintentional bug. Disable the volatile crystals, yes, and they are going to introduce it later. These on-death effects really need a bit better telegraphing. Trail of Fire monster mod deals less damage, lasts shorter. Trail of Lightning the same, Ice the same, and purple explosives that are by volatile plants deal significantly less damage. Those small purpley things, right, on death, like small purpley things, those things, they're dealing now less damage. Good. Now, Prowling Chimerals are... Pax is smaller and they are still with zombies. Now that's fine. And baseline monster density of breach encounters. This is sort of a nerf. So they've reduced the frequency of the elite monsters appearing, but breach is still going to have one of the bigger quantity of monsters, especially if you can keep killing them in an open area map. But it's a small or significant breach nerf depending on if you've farmed breach exclusively, but yes, it's sort of like a rebalance. Now there's an inconsistency in different types of packs that could spawn during breach. That's now random. That's perfectly fine. And volatiles now accelerate over time from volatile fiends. It's basically going to be like PoE 1. Stormcaller runes Trial of Chaos modifiers are now smaller, longer to charge when standing inside, and give more time to escape once triggered, which is a good thing. And hitboxes of number of abilities used by Blackjaw in Trial of Sekhema. Crossbow variants of the Decrepit Mercenary monsters that dealt fire damage now deal less damage. Basically the ones that charge the arrow shot. Those have killed me a few times. Trial of Sekhema improvements. Honor damage scales down based on distance to enemies. So if you are melee, you take 35% less honor damage removal when in close range, and then it goes up to like 0 the farther you are. There's also a bug that damage over time was dealing 3 times as much damage to Honor. That's now fixed. And where Honor resistance was only applying to 2/3 of the damage taken, which was confusing to them too. So now that's fixed. Now you won't lose that much Honor if you've done this before versus now. Skitter Golems no longer use basic attacks and now explode. And Serpent, Clan, Burrow, and Ambush now have improved visual telegraphing and cannot be used as from far away, which is awesome. Those Serpents really are annoying when they pop underneath you and then tail swipe you, but yes. Volcanoes created by Rattlecage, which is the tier 1, floor 1 boss, now last half the duration, and there's a keyword to Honor mechanic. Skill balance, which is a very, very exciting thing. We have Rolling Slam. Second slam deals more damage, 50% more. Ice Shot Shards, secondary, more proj as it levels up. Targets 90-degree cone. Travel further, 200 ms from 100. That's to be tested, of course. Ice Shot Arrow and proj are smaller and same size as other arrows now. Electrocuting Arrow, base duration to 25 seconds from 12. And doubling quality bonus, so that adds another 6 seconds. Barrage, 25% less damage on barrage attacks from 60 at level 1 and same scaling per level, and now has 2 repeats from 1, which is generally good. Shock Chain Arrow shockwaves deal 100% more damage, so rejoice. Sniper's Mark cooldown reduced to 2 seconds at all levels, down from 6. Combat Frenzy gains a frenzy charge every 3 seconds to 1.5 seconds now. Stormcaller Arrow's Bolt gain additional impact radius, which is good for AoE, and Vine Arrow damage over time has been adjusted. It has gone to an exponential curve of damage, and it has now been properly, I suppose, properly adjusted to have the scaling. Tornado Shot damage over time has been adjusted as well, slightly higher at lower levels and substantial lower at higher levels, lower levels. The intention is to propagate to other bow skills as opposed to doing an immense amount of damage itself. Magnetic Salvo now only uses your own lightning arrows or lightning rods instead of those by party members, so party members nerf. Increase the damage growth of Unearth, Bone Storm, Bone Cage, Bone Blast, and Power Siphon, 50% more damage at level 25. Same thing with Essence Drain, Contagion, Profane Ritual, Chaos Bolt, which is 33% more damage. Bone Cage, 2% more crit. Skeleton Arsonists are now more expensive, which is going to be a slight damage nerf. You can use less of them now. Bone Offering Explosions, 2% crit bonus. Resonating Shield, Shield Charge, and Shield Wall now have added fizz damage per armor on your shield at all levels, similar to PoE 1. Resonating Shield radius increased, and Shield Wall Explosions increased to 4 meters and can create max 2 walls. Siege Cascade got a rebalance, attack time 75, 3.5 meter radius for search, and 50% more damage against immobilized, down from 200, but the explosion deals 167% more damage, accounting for damage loss. Siege Cascade also has 30% less reload speed, down from 50, which is good, and 2% damage against immobilized enemy, down from 4, which is a nerf. Stormblast Bolts, maximum of 30 bolts, up from 9, 5 in a clip, and 30% less reload speed, so general buff. Plasma Blast deals 47% more damage with initial hit and 25% less damage with explosion, and is going to rely less on colliding with walls to deal enough damage. Art Ballista increased the range and the damage by roughly 20%. Gathering Storm's Perfect Dash deals 50% more damage, 53. Wave of Frost has more build-up of freeze to 275, up from 150. Staggering Palm scales with levels, 6-second duration, and scaling up to 0.2. We have Staggering Palm's projectiles deal more damage, so a general buff. Concoctions from Pathfinder have gotten a massive buff, by the way, massive buff. Less charges used and way more damage buildup, and including with the ailments as well. So Hunter's Talisman is a thing that's new, which passive notable, which grants 1 charm slot, and we cannot exceed 3, but that is going to be on the tree now, and the lightning damage and electrocute cluster in between Ranger and Monk sections to actually get the nerf a little bit mitigated from the electrocution being harder to apply. Heavy Frost notable passive skill now causes hits to only ignore enemy resistances of frozen enemies if their values were positive, and Supercharged Slam builds up stages slower but gains 40% more damage per stage, double basically. Electrocute is now 25% harder to build up, but the damage penalty removed from the support gem called Electrocute, which had minus 40, so 40% less damage, now that is basically 0. And now it's more difficult to chain freeze enemies, they gave them damage, DR, diminishing returns. Added the marker effect to Ember's Fusillade preferred target as well. Okay, support balance. Add the Tremors support gem, that's a new one. You can be used to give up multiple more aftershocks to skills with a damage penalty. Bidding support is for minions to give more damage to command skills of supported minions. Now exposure skills, fire, lightning, and cold, while support gems no longer penalize damage of supported skills, but they now have a mana cost multiplier of 120%. Electrocute support no longer penalizes damage, and it prevents the supported skills from being able to shock. So it cannot shock, but it can build up electrocute. The lacerate support gets 50% chance to bleed, up from 30, and venom is 50 to poison, down from 60. Impact Shockwave now has an aftershock of 2 meters, which is a buff. Bidding support now grants 30% more damage to minion commands, up from 20. Consider casting support spells you cast yourself. It also grants 40% more spell damage, up from 25, and 15 less cast speed, down from 10. Aftershock support has 25% chance to cause an aftershock, which is a slight buff, and mobility support no longer has a damage penalty, but applies 30% less movement, which is better than 40. Execrate support 100% chance to inflict ailments, up from 50, so double, and Ricochet 40% chance to chain from terrain for projectiles, up from 20. Withering Touch support has 25% less damage, down from 50, so that's generally a buff. The Ferocity support now has 40% more skill speed when consuming a Frenzy Charge, up from 30, which is good, and change the Wild Shards to fire projectiles in a circle instead of a spiral. Decaying Hex support now deals 60% of int as Chaos, up from 30, double buff, and the Stomping Ground now deals 80 to 120 of your strength as physical, up from 20 to 30. That's an insane buff. That's a 4x buff for Stomping Ground. For item balance, we have charm modifiers on belts now being way more common. I don't know why they're explicit, but it is what it is. Unique item Adore now applies to Time Lost Jewels, and the regeneration on Time Lost Jewels is now 3 to 7 increased life regen, up from 1 to 2, which is a massive buff. There were some bug fixes as well in the patch, but you can read those as well in the description below. I will post this link to it, but overall, very, very, very good patch. Great buffs, awesome things, slight breach nerf, some slight minion nerf, but up damage somewhere else. So all in all, great work. Respec is cheaper. Getting an extra charm slot from passive skills from passive tree is awesome. So all in all, great work, GGG. Thank you for the patch notes. So this is going to be it for the video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this type of recap content. I will see you then in the next video. Like and sub the video if you don't mind. I will see you again, as I said, in the next video or stream. Next stream, we are testing the patch notes. But now, off to bed. Have a good one, and thanks for watching once again.